Hi guys, welcome to my channel, The Inked Reader. My name is Eva and today I am filming for the very first time, actually, the mid-year book freak-out tag. I just saw this going around and I always thought it was a good idea potentially to film it and put it on my channel, but I never actually got around to because I could never decide which was the best book. And yeah, this year though I really sat down and I tried to fill in answers to all of these questions. I have tried not to repeat answers to the questions, although sometimes it's inevitable to do so, but yeah, without further ado, I'm gonna go into the tag. Best book of the year you've read thus far. I couldn't come up with only one answer to these. However, I have a couple that I'm gonna mention in question number 1, and I've got one that fit perfectly in question number 2 but would also merit a spot here. And so I'm gonna start with the one that quality wise I believe deserve to be like my favorite read of the year thus far. I don't know if it will stay at first place, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, and when I was filling in these questions this is one of the first picks that came up in my mind. So definitely one of the best books I've read this year was The Ninth Reign by Jen Williams. This is a high fantasy, epic fantasy. It's a trilogy. This is the start of it and it feels very classic high fantasy with though a very refreshing writing, and it's a very complex word to explain, and I do believe that part of the fascination and part of the reason why this is a number 1 is because of everything you find out when you open up this book and you immerse yourself in this adventure. So I do not want to spoil anything because I believe it would be a disservice to you, and if you have not read these you would potentially hinder your enjoyment of it, or I want you to go into these quite blind, not knowing what to expect. However, let me just say this: you follow different characters there are different creatures in this world, human included, but not only, and you follow 3 of these characters. Each one of them is of a different breed, and they go on a quest to find out more about this race of enemies that has been coming back to this world, trying to conquer it over and over and over again, failing thus far, but keep coming back, and they need to find out more about these enemies. Who are they? Where are they coming from? How do they work? So you go on a quest and there are different point of views that you follow, so you are in different parts of the world. Not too many characters though, so it's not confusing at all. It is very clear and it's packed with action and the mystery of finding out more about these enemies. And I really liked the twists, I really enjoyed the dynamics between the characters, and I really ultimately loved her writing and how she ends these. I was super hyped to pick up the next and continue on with the series. So yeah, The Ninth Reign is been going around a bit, it's been mentioned as booktubers and people around the internet. It is honestly a very good quality fantasy in my opinion. And I do have to mention another book, and in the last few years my best reads of the year has always been books that enjoyment wise I couldn't put down. It happens once a year if I'm lucky, where a book grips me and doesn't let me go until it's consumed my life and until I've reached the end. And the only book that has done this year, it's an incredible odd choice for what I usually read, because this is a inverse harem romance, new adult romance that usually I would never reach out for, but there is something so addictive about these. So for now, Broken Bonds by Jade City, which I believe is self-published, but I might be wrong, it has to deserve a spot in here because this book I opened up and I didn't let it go until I was done with it. This is, as I said, reverse harem, where in this world you got male or females that can have multiple bonds, so people that are like their soulmates, and when they mate they enhance each other's powers. And you follow our main protagonist Oleander. She has 5 of them, 5 boys that are her soulmates. She doesn't have to choose between them, she can be with all of them. However, due to her powers, which we don't know what they are at the beginning, she doesn't want to bond with them, and so she runs away from them until one day they catch up with her. They take her to a magical school, university, whatever, college, and she's really adamant that she wants to keep them away because they can't mate, they can't have her powers enhanced because it would be disastrous for the whole world. And the dynamics within these and the main protagonist is what really, I believe, made me love it so much. Although I can't defend these as not being toxic because there are a few problematic scenes in it, she recognizes. She is someone who swears a lot, she is very relatable, and she's also someone who sees things and like, this is a bit fucked up. And she is so hilarious in the way she deals with these guys and really try to keep them away. I found her quite refreshing as a protagonist in these kind of romances. Dark romances, problematic romances, but the way she deals with it is what really made me love these as much as I did. I can't testify about the sequels, but I'm planning like a summer marathon of them. I want to get my hands on all of them and then just binge read them, because I have a feeling that I will want to binge read them. And so yeah, I had to mention these. Now, question number 2 is best sequel you've read thus far this year, and this book could be featured in one of the best reads of the year, doubtlessly, but because there was this question, I thought it was a perfect occasion for me to put this here. This is Words of Radiance. Yes, I finally read this very popular pick and I loved it. The reason why initially I didn't immediately think about putting it at number 1 is because in UK it's divided in 2 parts, and part 1 wouldn't feature in my best reads of the year at all. Together with part 2 it would. So the second part I absolutely loved. I was so excited. I was on the edge of my seat. I was there for it. I do love the characters and I did love them in the first part as well, but the action was very mellow compared to the second part of the second book. Yeah, it is definitely the best sequel I've read thus far. This is epic high fantasy at its core. It's so popular. I'm not gonna spend any time with the synopsis about these, but I can see why people love the sequel so much. I did enjoy the first book very, very much, but the ending of the second book and how things all come together in the second book, and the more exploration we have of these characters, really packed a punch. So yeah, Words of Radiance, amazing. New releases that you have not read yet. Usually I tend to don't put pressure on me to read new releases as they come out, which is bad for someone who does booktube, I am aware of that, because it's something that would generate more audience. But I honestly, I've got so many books I need to read, backlog and so on, so I do keep a note of what's coming out, but I don't become obsessed with reading it immediately. However, there is a book that I kept hearing people praising it throughout the months, and it just piqued my interest particularly, which is God Killer, which is a fantasy. I don't know if it's a standalone or part of a series, but you just follow a guy who kills gods and it just sounds amazing. And then the other one is released by Hendrix, which is How to Sell a Haunted House. And the reason why I'm particularly interested in this one is because thus far I've read all of his things apart from Horror Store, the one IKEA inspired. So I like his books. I don't love them, like it's not like favorite reads of the year, but I like his style. That are very like easy, funny horrors to read, and so yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this as well. Most anticipated release for the next part of the year, there are a bunch of releases that I am curious to pick up. With these, I would put probably a sequel of a series that has been like something that I cherished in the last year or so, and then every time a new book comes out I try to read it immediately. And I was looking up on Sarah J Maas books. I was looking up Empire of the Vampire sequels, but those are all 2024 releases. So yeah, not gonna happen in 2023, but one that is gonna happen in 2023, finger crossed, is A Curse for True Love, which is a final book in a trilogy by Stephanie Gerber, the sequel trilogy to Caraval. I did read Caraval and enjoyed it, but it wasn't that special. But this series really hooked me. I love the characters in this series, and so I can't wait to see how this ends. Even, you know, the synopsis of this would be a bit of a spoiler, I believe, because it's a subsequent series just about, you know, fairies and impossible loves, and a very colorful, joyful writing. She creates this world that feels like, I don't know, feels like cotton candy. Like, I can taste the world, the colors and the atmospheres that she creates, and so that's why I like it so much. But I also really like the main characters. She's a bit annoying, but she's the kind of annoying that I found cute. I don't know why. And he is a Fable, so it's just like this guy who's cursed to kiss and kill everybody unless it's his true love. And yeah, it's just a guilty pleasure read that I really look forward to read and have a good time when it comes out. Okay, biggest disappointment. I've got two answers for these. One is a book that I generally despised. Not worst either. I've read way worse, but I really wasn't pleased with it at all. So start with that, and I'm gonna tell you about the second one. Stalking Jack the Ripper. I knew that retelling of Jack the Ripper with a female protagonist trying to catch the killer was a stretch for me, but because I enjoyed her other series, which yes, technically came out after this, but I read first, I was expecting great things, and I found all of these absolutely problematic. I did mention these in my recent wrap-up, so I'm not gonna spend too much time here. Just to say, I found this absurd. I found that I'm not like the other women, heavy-handed. Maybe everything in this didn't work, so I paid attention to my critiques more than I would have otherwise. But ultimately, I just found the reveal of who was it, who done it, absolutely so far-fetched, so absurd. I'm not happy with this at all. I gave it probably 2 stars. So this was something that I was expecting to like. I was looking forward to. Has been on my shelves for ages, you know. But there is another disappointment, and this is probably the biggest disappointment in the sense that I enjoy this book. I think I gave this book up to 4 stars, so it's not a bad book at all. However, I was expecting, like everybody else and their mother, to put this on my top 1 read of the year, and instead is not gonna be probably featured in that video at all. I've just read the first one of the trilogy, so I will read the rest and see if it grows on me. But as of now, this is a book I was expecting a perfect 5 stars. I was expecting to pull out my hair for it, and it turned out to be just okay, good, solid, but just okay. And if you've watched the recent wrap-up, you know what I mean, but this is Jade City. I know, this is a start of, again, high fantasy. It's kind of a gangster fantasy where you follow a family that is a gangster family, and there is like powers that come with the jade. So, you know, this gem gives you different powers, and according to how much you wear, the stronger you become. And you got 2 families, 2 rival families, disputing over territory, and there is betrayal and people dying and people plotting and all of that. I just said I would have loved this probably more if it was just a gangster book without the fantasy element. It did grow on me toward the end. However, my biggest critique is how she decided to structure this story. I found her choices of where to put things in the story less effective of what they could have been, and I went into details in my wrap-up on why, you know, a bit more. So yeah, ultimately I did like a couple of characters, but not all of them. I found this quite slow in certain parts, and yeah, I found the writing okay, but it didn't blow my mind. And so I'm just like, let's see. I do want to continue on, but I can't deny that this was something I expected absolutely to adore and didn't get close to that. So biggest surprise. And with this I really tried to go with a book that I had no expectation about, or I thought it was gonna be like 3-4 stars, and I really end up loving. And I have to mention Monday's Not Coming. This is a contemporary story that I listened on audiobook, and it's about this young girl whose best friend one day disappears, and she goes on a quest to find out what happened to her. And this for 3/4 was a 4 stars, solid 4-star. And then the last quarter of the book happens, and my mind was blown. Whatever she did here was so well crafted, and I was in awe. I had read before from this author and I really enjoy writing in general. However, she didn't stick the landing with the end of the other one. I think Grown is the title, so I really enjoyed the writing in that one, but I didn't like the ending. In this, I loved everything about this, and Monday's Not Coming, it broke me. I loved Monday's Not Coming. Another one that I want to mention is The Wolf Den. This is something that it's historical fiction where you follow the story of this prostitute who has been enslaved from Greece and now brought to Pompeii to work in a brothel, and you kind of follow her trying to survive this cutthroat world. It's savage, it's full of twists, and I really liked what the author crafted. This takes place a few years before the eruption of the volcano, then made Pompeii, the famous Pompeii. This is also the first book in a trilogy, and I immediately bought the sequel, which I still have to read, but I do want to read the sequel and continue on because I was really engrossed, and really this protagonist really captured me. She's a good character, but she's definitely morally grey in certain aspects, and just following the story of from the perspective of a prostitute is something that I had read only once before, and I loved that book back in the day. Funny by Erica Jong, but I've never have read something like this since then, which I was probably 13 years old when I read that book. And now seeing these, reading these sparked memories, but also captivated me for its the uniqueness of the story. And I do like historical fiction, so that doesn't hurt, but I really enjoyed this one. Favorite author was difficult for me because many of the authors that I read this year were recurring authors, or author I'd listened or from before or read before. But the one that really caught my attention with her writing style, and this again another book that I gave 5 stars, is The Female of the Species, and the author in herself is Mindy McGuinness. I think that she packed such a punch with this book that I was in awe. I think this book wouldn't be that perfect for me in all its grimness if it wasn't for her writing style. What happens ultimately, if you sit down and reflect on it, is very far-fetched. However, her writing style makes it feel like it's real, it's possible, it's happening behind your house. She makes these characters and the dance of her life feel very deeply true. And I think because she gets to the core of human emotions and is able to express it in a young adult novel so wonderfully. And just in a nutshell, this particular book is about this girl whose sister is murdered by a predator, and she's on a path of revenge, kind of. You have to read to see what actually happens in these. And McGuinness created Alex, which is a main protagonist that will stuck with me forever. New Fictional Crush. To be honest, it does happen more in manga and comics than it does in books. There are like protagonists or like boys, men in books that I do enjoy reading first perspective from, and I found them fascinating, but usually it's, I don't know, usually I have to have a visual element for me to get a crush, and I don't get that in books. However, a character that I really enjoyed, and I really root for him, despite the fact that I root also for the other characters, is Adolin from Words of Radiance. And I really liked Adolin. I cherish the guy, like I want the best for him, and every time he was involved in a fight or something, I was like, please don't die, my heart would break. So yeah, Adolin is one of the ones that when I thought about this, it's only his name that came up. Favorite characters, Shellan from World of Radiance. Yes, she is so kick-ass, while maintaining like a very sweet vibe. I don't know, Shellen is clever, she is witty, she is fierce when she wants. She has all the combination of characteristics that I really admire in a woman, or any person to be fair. So Shellen is my favorite one. I really also enjoyed Oleander. Like, she was hilarious, and some of the hardships that she went through I could connect with, and so I liked her. Like, she's kick-ass, and she's one of the female protagonists in a toxic romantic story where she can say this is toxic. So the way she approaches things is quite hilarious and kick-ass at the same time. And Alex, as I said, Alex really threw a punch in my gut, and it will hurt forever. It will hurt forever. So yeah, Alex. Books that made me cry. I didn't cry in any of these, I believe. So it wasn't that point that I cried, but they made me feel things, and I was extremely sad. On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous. This is autobiographical series of letters, or a narration the author makes tailored to his mother, so with the aim that his mother is reading it or will read it. Hopefully she won't. I don't know, would I want her to read it? But this is heartbreaking. And you know, if the author is gay and is in his teenagehood, or yeah, I think it was a teen, fell in love with someone, and their story is quite tragic and heart-wrenching, and also like seeing how, you know, this Vietnamese family is trying to navigate America after leaving the war is again gut-wrenching. The way he exposes himself, the way he becomes naked to the pages and vulnerable to the pages, really struck a chord within me and really made me admire how brave he was to write something this personal. Definitely touching moments. And another one that really made me sad in the end was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I never watched the movie, so this is the only time I consumed this story. And although at times I was like going through this book and just like, okay, I don't get it, at the end when things happen, I got it, and I was profoundly sad about what happened and why it needed to happen. So yeah, this one as well. A book that made me happy. This is one that made me happy for how sweet it was. It's a bit of a spoiler because I've not wrapped it up yet, but I have finished it, and whoa, where it's going. It's Divine Rivals. This is the beautiful Fairy Loot edition. I did an unboxing for these. I'll link it down below. It's a story of Iris and Roman, and they are working at this journal, and they are arch enemies. They are competing to get the columnist job, and in this world, which is similar to our world, there are gods, two gods specifically, they are at war. I initially thought this was based on Greek gods at war, but no, she makes up two gods with their own legend, and these two gods are at war, and so they have like humans fighting this war on their behalf. And the brother of Iris go to war and disappear. So she lives with her mother is having issues, at job she struggles because Roman is always getting the best of her, they are struggling financially, and she starts writing these letters to his brother and putting them in the closet, and the letters disappear. So she knows that these letters are going somewhere. It's a very low fantasy, almost feels like magic realism in certain things, apart from, you know, when you get the gods part. But even that war, it feels very much like you're reading a book about World War II, for example. It didn't feel like a magic war until the very end, I'd say. It's the first book in a trilogy, or like there are gonna be more books from this one. But what really made me happy is just seeing these two characters rivalry and the way they connect, without giving any spoilers, although you know where this is going. Their relationship, the way this relationship is so pure, the way this word and her writing is just making these characters come out of the pages, it really made me happy every time they would be together, or every time they would just appear on page and talking about each other. Their relationship felt so uniquely pure. It had nothing of any tropes of romance or toxic relationship you can think of. And there were a few moments that were so touching, so romantic, that I don't read romance, but this was like, it made me want to read more romance, because I found the way she does romance in this so perfect, so tastefully delicate and profound at the same time. And it really made me happy seeing two people that I root for them so much. I want them to be real and I want them to be together. Movie adaptation. So the best book to movie adaptation. Now I am gonna cheat a bit here, because when I was filling these answers in, I couldn't think of one. I have not watched many stuff that are based on books, or at least I'd not watched, like, read a book and then watched the adaptation of. So I'm gonna cheat a bit and I'm just gonna mention a movie which I liked. I don't know, it's such like a heavy, hard-hitting movie that I respect the hell out of it, and I was in awe of the performances, but it was also like one of the hardest movies I had to watch this year. And this is Beasts of No Nation. This is on Netflix and it won some awards, I believe, and it is based on what happened, I believe, in Congo with children soldiers. So there is some inspiration from true events for this book. However, the book itself is fiction, as this movie is, as a consequence. But this was so impactful because, yes, I had heard of children soldiers, but it's something that you don't often, maybe to also protect your mental health, don't delve too much into. And so having a whole 2 hours spent watching the horrors unfold was gut-wrenching, but it was remarkably well done. And I know that there is a book about this. I know it was inspired by a book, so I've not read the book. I'm sorry, I'm cheating about this question a bit, but I watched the movie. The movie is great. I can imagine that the book should be too. Favorite video I filmed this year, I honestly, I really enjoyed. I was like such a huge task filming my favorite comics, complete a series, comic series. I really enjoyed filming that. I was very proud of myself for how I edited, considering that I am an amateur. I don't have any skills whatsoever, so I'm learning by just doing booktube. So that took me ages to edit and I'm pretty proud of it. Most beautiful book you have purchased. Now I could give you a million answers with all my fairy loot are absolutely stunning. My fairy loots, remarkably, I must say that the pages of the Flower Bride is like, these are definitely some of my favorite pages. However, I thought about going with the book that I had actually purchased outside, like book subscription boxes, and that has to be The Earth Transformed Because of This. Like, can we appreciate, like, it looks stunning. I love this kind of green, and there's beautiful maps inside. It looks like, I just love the color scheme, and I just thought this was so unique. And I was interested in reading this book, but not that much, and I definitely didn't plan to spend that much money to get the Waterstone special copy. But when I saw this, I was like, man, I can't, I need to have it. So yeah, this is probably my favorite book thus far, and I just display it, and sometimes I just stare at it. I just come here and stare at these, and I'm happy when I do so. So books you need to read before the end of the year. I'm not gonna attempt this. I am doing a shelf TBR, so each month I pick a random shelf from behind me and I have to read all the books that are on the shelf, or attempt to read all the books on that shelf. So take your pick. Take your pick. One book I will read, though, I'm gonna binge read the Broken Bonds series for sure, and I would love to read the sequel to The Wolf Den. I would love to read the sequels to The Ninth Reign. I will try, I don't know if I can this year, to read the next book in the Malazan Empire of the Fallen series, just because if I wait too long I won't remember anything, and it's already so complicated to remember anything about that series. So yeah, that's it. Let me know the answers to these questions in the comments down below. I would love to know your mid-year freak out tag. If you're new, why not subscribe? The button is down below. Just feel free to click it, and I'll see you next time. I'm gonna do like a comic version of these, I believe, so stay tuned for that. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time. Ciao!